When did a LinkedIn message thread unleash succession-level corporate chaos? I just found the most batshit insane, professionally damaging secret hidden in a private LinkedIn message thread. And I'm sitting here at 2:00 a.m. in my Honda Civic 2018 model, the one with the annoying dashboard rattling, trying to figure out if I need to call the police or just run away to Costa Rica and open a smoothie stand. Seriously, this isn't just about someone getting fired. This is succession-level corporate drama mashed up with a truly unhinged family dynamic, all playing out on the most painfully professional network on the planet. I thought I was just doing some late-night resume polishing, but now my hands are shaking so bad I almost dropped my lukewarm Starbucks Americano all over the beige upholstery. I need to vent this out to the universe because if I tell my mom, she'll just say I never liked that Khaled boy, he always looked shifty. Mom's right, always predicting chaos. Okay, let me back up. I don't even know where to start with this dumpster fire, but let's start with the chaos catalyst, the dearly departed patriarch Mr. Sterling Finch. He died suddenly 3 weeks ago today, Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. according to the terrible, non-SEO optimized email HR sent out. Sterling owned Finch Global, a mid-sized but extremely influential consulting firm where I regrettably am the senior content strategist. I write the painfully polite, passive-aggressive updates about synergy and optimizing human capital. You know, the good stuff. Sterling was 92, ancient, and filthy rich. Everyone at work knew the reading of the will was going to be an event, mostly because Sterling had 5 ex-wives, 14 estranged cousins, and 3 kids who actively hated each other. But the real drama, the corporate drama, was focused on who got the CEO chair. Enter my core players in this nightmare scenario. First up, the guy who thinks he already owns the place, Ralph Shaw, 34M. Ralph is the ambitious upstart. He wears tailored suits that look suspiciously expensive for his director salary, drives a leased BMW he absolutely cannot afford, and has 47,000 connections on LinkedIn, mostly VPs he cold messaged while they were trying to eat lunch. Ralph is obsessed with personal branding and literally tracks his engagement rates on his posts. He's the type who posts inspirational quotes over blurry photos of his coffee mug. I swear he sees the company as his personal launchpad to a TED Talk stage. He's been working overtime unpaid NGL because he's an idiot for 2 years 8 months trying to kiss up to Sterling and secure the top spot. He was certain he was getting the firm. Absolutely certain. Then you have the true terrifying wildcard, Angela Thompson, 85F. Angela is Sterling's cousin or possibly his second cousin twice removed. The genealogy was messy. She is the destination wedding demander. This woman is a nightmare. She has 0 actual business experience but carries the name Finch and lives off old money. Her entire personality revolves around demanding extreme luxury and forcing everyone around her to participate in profoundly expensive, bizarre social functions. We're talking 3-day mandatory yacht parties in Monaco for her cat's birthday. She once tried to expense a private jet rental because she didn't like the color of the standard business class seats. She thinks the firm should be liquidated and the proceeds used to fund her lifelong dream, a 9-day black tie mandatory attendance while reading celebration in the Maldives. She's old money, high maintenance, and has the financial morals of a pirate. The will reading itself was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. this past Friday. The email said, required attendance for all senior leadership and direct descendants, location to be determined. It ended up being a really depressing, poorly catered event in the 5th floor conference room, the one where the AC is always busted and smells faintly of old tuna casserole. The moment the lawyer, a tiny man who looked like he hadn't slept since 1997, stood up, the tension was so thick you could cut it with one of Ralph's aggressively sharp lapel pins. Ralph was sitting there, beaming, ready for his coronation. Angela was wearing this obnoxious, enormous feathered hat that took up 2 chairs, sighing dramatically every time the lawyer paused to clear his throat. And then came the bombshell, the reason I'm here eating Talenti gelato sea salt caramel naturally directly out of the pint at 2:17 a.m. Sterling didn't leave the company to Ralph. He didn't liquidate it for Angela's destination wedding fantasies. He left the firm, Finch Global, in trust to be managed by a previously unknown entity, the Bobby Washington Foundation for the Ethical Redistribution of Synergistic Capital. Everyone, and I mean everyone, looked at the one person in the room named Bobby Washington. That would be Bobby Washington, 74M, the guy who has been Sterling's personal assistant for the last 30 years. Bobby Washington is the Gray Rock Method user. If you don't know the Gray Rock Method, it's basically where you make yourself as boring, uninteresting, and non-reactive as humanly possible so that people with high drama personalities like Angela lose interest and leave you alone. Bobby is the physical embodiment of a beige filing cabinet. He wears the same shade of charcoal gray suit every day. His phone is an ancient flip phone. He speaks only in monotone, non-committal phrases like, "That is certainly a choice," or "I will review the data." He is literally the last person anyone expected to inherit anything, let alone the whole damn company. The lawyer read the clause. Bobby Washington will assume immediate control of all corporate assets and management duties effective upon my death with the express mandate to restructure the firm towards sustainable, long-term nonprofit partnerships. His decisions are final and non-negotiable. The room imploded. Angela's feathered hat nearly flew off her head. She shrieked, "This is an outrage. I demand a recount. I was supposed to have the 9-day Maldives celebration." Ralph Shaw went a shade of purple I haven't seen since I accidentally mixed my whites with a new red sock. He stammered, but the metrics, my 2 years 8 months of deliverables, I was promised the transition plan. And Bobby, 74M. He just blinked, adjusted his terrible wire-rimmed glasses, and in the flattest tone known to man said, "I will be sending out a memo regarding the new strategic alignment at 9:00 a.m. tomorrow." Just like that, no emotion, pure gray rock. The whole thing broke up in utter chaos. Ralph was shouting into his iPhone 14 outside about getting his lawyer on the line. Angela was trying to physically assault the tiny lawyer, demanding to know where the private jet manifest was. I just stood there pretending to look busy checking my Slack notifications. I had 47 unread NGL. This brings me to the second core character, Caleb Gonzalez, 49M. Caleb is the protective sibling. He works 2 departments over in IT security. Caleb's sister, Clara, got absolutely screwed over by Finch Global during a layoff 5 years ago, and Caleb has nursed a serious grudge ever since. He watches everything. He's hypervigilant, wears a constantly suspicious expression, and has definitely tried to hack the company servers more than once just for fun. He keeps his Samsung Galaxy in a protective case that could withstand a small nuclear blast. He constantly tells me, "Don't trust the suits, they're all snakes." Caleb caught me lurking near the busted coffee machine right after the will reading. "Did you see that?" Caleb hissed, his voice dropping to a low growl. Bobby Washington. The man who speaks in PowerPoint bullet points. Something is wrong. I was still reeling. I mean, maybe Sterling was just eccentric. He was 92, Caleb. Maybe he just wanted to mess with everyone. Caleb shook his head, looking deadly serious. No, Sterling liked control. He wouldn't hand over a multi-million-dollar firm to a man who uses the phrase per my previous email as a personal philosophy unless there was a reason, a secret reason. He then did the most Caleb thing ever. He didn't ask me to investigate. He told me to watch my back. Ralph is going to try to break into that trust fund structure. Angela is going to try to force a liquidation. You need to be ready because chaos always spills onto the little people. He was right. By Saturday, the LinkedIn network was an absolute war zone. Ralph Shaw posted an inspirational thought piece at 6:00 a.m. about the importance of visionary, youthful leadership in disruptive markets. Angela Thompson messaged 20 senior partners demanding they RSVP for her emergency planning session, which sounded suspiciously like a spa day. Bobby posted a single update. The new mission statement will emphasize synergy through decentralized nonprofit collaboration. That post got 3 likes. One was me hitting like out of terror. Then came the really messed up part. The part that connects the chaos directly to me sitting in my Civic trying to wipe the tears and Talenti remnants off my shirt. Yesterday, Sunday afternoon, I was trying to relax. I ordered Chipotle a burrito bowl, white rice, double chicken, extra guac. I know, $15.85 way too much, and was finally trying to catch up on Love is Blind on Netflix. The phone rang. It was an unrecognized number. I ignored it. It rang again and again. In the span of 1 hour, I got 27 calls. My iPhone storage is literally full, so I usually ignore everything that isn't a text from my mom. Finally, a text came through. It wasn't from a phone number. It was a LinkedIn message notification from a name I didn't recognize, a throwaway account clearly named Ethical Synergy Now. The message was one word, look. Underneath the word look was a screenshot. A screenshot of a private locked-down folder on the Finch Global server that only the board and Sterling had access to. The folder was labeled ANGLA Ralph Expense Audit 2024. I felt my stomach drop, not just because I was getting drawn into corporate espionage, but because the source was clearly someone with high-level unauthorized access. Caleb, maybe. I immediately texted Caleb. Did you send me a message on LinkedIn from Ethical Synergy Now? Caleb texted back 2 minutes later, 0 typos, which is how I knew he was serious. Stay off the network, delete everything, do not respond. Too late, curiosity, meet the cat. I was already logged into my work laptop, which I'd hauled home from the office on the 5th floor because I was trying to finish a massive report on Q2 social media metrics. Seriously, the grind never ends even when the CEO dies. I knew I shouldn't try to access the file from my work laptop, that's just asking to get tracked. So I pulled up a VPN on my personal desktop, logged into the Finch Global Internet through a backdoor I shouldn't know about. Thanks, Caleb, for that casual 20-minute lesson on hypothetically bypassing firewalls, and searched for the folder. It was there, and it wasn't locked anymore. The folder contained thousands of documents, mostly expense reports, financial transfers, and highly damaging internal memos. The sheer volume was overwhelming, but I focused on the most recent files related to Ralph and Angela. Ralph's audit was first. I found $200 withdrawals happening weekly, labeled client entertainment. But the corresponding expense reports showed he was only buying gas station coffee and sometimes $43.67 grocery bills from Trader Joe's, which, let's be real, is just for his personal groceries. More damningly, I found an invoice for a specific consulting service labeled Finch Legacy Preparation. The amount? $50,000. It was paid to a shell company in Delaware 3 months ago. The memo attached read, contract for securing executive transition post-SF. Ralph wasn't just hoping to get the company, he was paying serious money to ensure it. Paying someone off, bribing a lawyer. Past me was an absolute clown for not realizing Ralph was this intense. Then there was Angela. Oh my god, Angela. The destination wedding demander was in another league. I found a Zelle transaction for $1,247 flagged as urgent rent payment for an apartment in Miami, apartment 3B. She definitely doesn't live in Miami. Then there was a $347 bill to a high-end French tailor and an $85 plumber charge for a house she supposedly sold 5 years ago. This woman was bleeding the company dry with tiny, fraudulent expenses, probably assuming no one would look past the $500,000 yacht rentals she actually submitted. But the real kicker was a document labeled THOMPSON Finch Agreement. It was dated 6 months ago. It wasn't an expense report. It was a contract where Sterling agreed to financially back Angela's destination wedding dreams, a sum reaching $5 million, if she signed a waiver agreeing never to contest the will and specifically excluding her from any executive management roles. So Sterling knew Angela was toxic, paid her off, and made her sign a non-compete for the will. But that still didn't explain Bobby Washington, 74M, why him. I spent the next 2 hours scrolling through old files, ignoring the anxiety headache pulsing behind my eyes and the fact that I hadn't eaten anything but the guac out of that burrito bowl. I drank half an energy drink and my heart rate was probably at 140 BPM. I was looking for any communication between Bobby and Sterling that seemed more than "here are your dry cleaning notes." Nothing. Bobby was pure gray rock, even in internal memos. I was about to shut it down, feeling defeated and paranoid, when I saw one last folder deep in the archives, dated late 2023. It was labeled Project Echelon. I clicked it. It contained exactly one file, a long, rambling private message thread from the LinkedIn network, a conversation. The participants were listed as 1 Sterling Finch, deceased 92M2, Caleb Gonzalez, protective sibling 49M3, Pamela Gonzalez, loud neighbor 65F. Wait, what? Pamela Gonzalez, 65F, is my next-door neighbor in my apartment building. She lives in 4A. She's the literal definition of the loud neighbor. She constantly complains about my recycling habits, leaves passive-aggressive notes on my door about the volume of my Hulu binges, and once called the landlord because my Ring doorbell chimed too loudly. She is the nosiest, most irrelevant person I know. Why on earth was she in a private, locked-down LinkedIn message thread with the deceased CEO of Finch Global and the paranoid IT security guy? I clicked on the thread, utterly bewildered. I felt the adrenaline hit me again, the kind that makes your vision blurry and your legs weak. The messages were incredibly specific, running from November 2023 until the week Sterling died. They were definitely typed out in the raw, conversational style of someone trying to hide something very important inside mundane details. Pamela, 65F, to Sterling, 92M, Nov 14, 2023. Sterling, dear, the hydrangeas are simply not cooperating this year. We need to talk about the timing of the delivery. He's asking too many questions about the new arrangement on Main Street. Sterling, 92M, to Pamela, 65F, Nov 15, 2023. Pamela, you know the arrangement must happen on Tuesday, the usual place. Tell him the delivery is contingent on the 60-day notice being met. Do not mention the specifics of the lease. What were they talking about? Flowers, real estate? It read like code. Then Caleb jumped in. Caleb, 49M, to Sterling, 92M, Nov 20, 2023. We have a security issue. Ralph tried to probe the server at 3:00 a.m. this morning. I blocked him immediately. He thinks he's slick. We need to accelerate phase 2. The upstart is getting too confident. His financial tracking needs to be monitored, especially the Venmo transactions. Sterling, 92M, to Caleb, 49M, Nov 21, 2023. Understood, Caleb. Continue monitoring. Maintain the firewall integrity. I need you to ensure the final package is secure. And make sure Bobby is ready. I saw Ralph post another ridiculous photo of his lunch. The audacity. Okay, so Sterling, Caleb, and Pamela were clearly coordinating a highly specific, secretive operation right under Ralph and Angela's noses. But what was Pamela's role, and why was she talking about hydrangeas and 60-day notices? I kept scrolling. The messages got more intense leading up to Sterling's death. Pamela, 65F, to Sterling, 92M, Jan 5, 2024. The loud neighbors are still causing issues. They refuse to comply with the standard procedures. I spoke to him directly at the coffee shop on Main Street. He said, "You're being dramatic. We cannot let him disrupt the structure, Sterling. It must be executed precisely." Loud neighbors, I literally live next door to Pamela, but who was him? Ralph? Angela? I checked the timestamp of that message. January 5th. I distinctly remember seeing Pamela talking very intensely to Ralph Shaw outside the building entrance that morning, right as I was running late for my 8:00 a.m. Zoom meeting. Ralph looked irritated, trying to wave her off. Caleb, 49M, to Sterling, 92M, Jan 10, 2024. The destination wedding demander just submitted another ridiculous invoice for research consulting in Saint-Tropez. I flagged it. She is too chaotic. We need to ensure the final transfer mechanism holds up to scrutiny. Bobby is practicing the gray rock, but he needs more material. Sterling, 92M, to Caleb, 49M, Jan 11, 2024. The final transfer mechanism is sound. It's ironclad, trust me. I used 3 lawyers, the good ones, not the tiny one we hired for the reading. Bobby has all the details. He's the only one who truly understands the mission. This is about ethical redistribution, Caleb. That's the whole point. We cannot let the upstart or the wedding demander get their greedy hands on this legacy. Then I found the message that made everything crash into focus. The piece of the puzzle that made me realize I wasn't dealing with a simple will reading. I was witnessing a meticulously planned, hostile takeover engineered by the deceased, his IT guy, and my terrible next-door neighbor. Pamela, 65F, to Sterling, 92M, Feb 28, 2024, just 2 days before Sterling's death. Sterling, I am concerned about the deadline. Ralph is getting suspicious. He saw me at Costco this morning and started asking about your health. I maintained the facade. I told him my usual story about the HOA meeting minutes, but the package is ready. I will deliver the final code to Bobby's apartment 3B right at 7:00 p.m. tomorrow. Ensure the safe deposit box instructions are encrypted using the phrase loud neighbor and that he checks the ceiling tile in the conference room after the reading. We must secure the firm before Ralph's ridiculous CEO transition party this weekend. Wait, apartment 3B? Angela Thompson's fraudulent rent payment from the audit was for apartment 3B in Miami. But Pamela just referenced Bobby's apartment 3B, right? And that's when the truly terrifying realization hit me. Bobby Washington, 74M, doesn't live in a lavish apartment. He lives in a tiny, depressing efficiency near the office. I know because I once helped him retrieve a misplaced package. But the fraudulent rent payment for 3B in Miami that Angela paid wasn't for Miami at all. It was a cover. Apartment 3B is the floor plan directly beneath mine. It's been vacant for 4 months. I suddenly remembered a small, annoying detail from 2 weeks ago. I was doing laundry, and I swore I heard muffled, very quiet classical music coming from 3B. I dismissed it, assuming the landlord was finally showing the unit. I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. I knew where I had to go. I slammed my car into drive, ignoring the fact that I was already late on my $1,247 rent payment, mine, not Angela's fake one. I drove the 3 blocks back to my building, parked the Honda Civic in my usual impossible spot, number 17, next to the dumpster, and crept inside. My goal, apartment 3B, Bobby Washington's secret headquarters, courtesy of the deceased CEO. The door to 3B was closed, but the deadbolt wasn't fully set. Another Grey Rock tactic? Leave the door almost open so people assume it's locked. I slid inside. The apartment was not empty. It was impeccably clean, and unlike my own cluttered, slightly smelly 4B, this place screamed spy headquarters. There were 3 massive monitors set up on an IKEA desk, all running complex financial modeling software. There was a detailed organizational chart of Finch Global taped to the wall, with huge red X's over Ralph's and Angela's faces. And in the middle of the room, sitting at the desk, looking absolutely nothing like the Grey Rock Bobby Washington 74M, was Pamela Gonzalez 65F. She wasn't wearing her usual floral muumuu. She was wearing tailored black slacks and a crisp white shirt. Her hair was pulled back tightly, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes. She was talking softly into a headset, completely focused on the screens. "No, Caleb, I told you," she was saying, her voice clear and professional, devoid of all loud neighbor whininess. "The preliminary fund transfer must happen at exactly 4:00 a.m. Ralph is still running unauthorized diagnostics, and Angela is demanding a conference call with the board using the code word Maldives. They are delaying the inevitable. We need to implement the final stage of Echelon before 8:00 a.m. I froze in the doorway. She was the architect. She wasn't just the loud neighbor. She was a highly trained, highly focused operative using the persona of Pamela, the loud neighbor, as a cover. The hydrangeas, the HOA complaints, all designed to make everyone believe she was a harmless, annoying old woman. She had been observing Ralph and Angela right under my nose, gathering intel for Sterling. Pamela slowly turned her head. Her eyes narrowed as she saw me frozen, holding a half-eaten pint of Tailenti. She sighed, taking the headset off. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered. "You're the little content strategist from 4B, aren't you? I told you kids to keep the noise down." Then she straightened up. The true Grey Rock facade dropped completely, revealing someone entirely different, someone powerful, calculating, and dangerously smart. "You should not have come here," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Did you read the thread?" My mouth was dry. I could only manage a choked whisper. "The ceiling tile in the conference room. What's in the safe deposit box? And where is the real Bobby Washington?" Pamela smiled, a slow, chilling grin that did not reach her eyes. She stood up, walking toward a small safe hidden behind a bookshelf, pulling out a heavy manila envelope. "The real Bobby is fine," she said, tapping the envelope. "He's just busy being the decoy CEO right now. This," she held up the envelope, which was thick and sealed with red wax, "is the full plan. It details everything, the source of the funding, the destination of the assets, and why the phrase loud neighbor encrypts the final instructions." She looked me dead in the eyes, and I felt that deep primal fear. This wasn't corporate drama anymore. This was a massive, organized financial dismantling of a corporation based entirely on a hidden LinkedIn chat involving my paranoid IT guy, my supposed old man PA, and my awful, secretly genius next-door neighbor. "And unfortunately," Pamela added, her voice dropping to a warning tone, "if you know this much, you're not going back to writing about Synergy. You are now part of Project Echelon, and we have a problem." She walked back to the computer screens, tapping one of them quickly. "Ralph Shaw just sent a panicked message to Caleb," she said, her voice urgent. "He found the internal audit file. He is driving to the office right now, claiming he needs to secure the legacy documents. He knows we know. He's trying to get to the conference room before us." Pamela grabbed a sleek black jacket hanging on the chair, moving with the speed of someone 30 years younger. "We have exactly 12 minutes to get to that 5th-floor conference room and retrieve whatever Sterling hid in that ceiling tile before Ralph Shaw does," she commanded, throwing me the keys to the apartment. "Don't drop the gelato. Lock up 3B, you're driving. And we need to figure out why Sterling left specific instructions demanding a destination wedding be thrown for the entire corporate team, or the foundation fails. We're out of time. Move." I slammed the Civic into drive, the transmission protesting loudly, and Pamela, "Sorry, I need to call her agent Pamela now, because loud neighbor just doesn't cut it anymore." She was already flipping through the manila envelope shed grabbed from the safe. And GL, seeing her in tailored black slacks instead of that hideous lavender muumuu, was like watching a completely different person. She looked like M from James Bond if M also constantly critiqued your choice of laundry detergent. "You need to lose the pint," Pamela stated, not looking up from the documents. "It's Tailenti," I hissed back, maneuvering the Civic, rattling dashboard included, out onto Main Street. I am emotionally attached. We are enacting a hostile, ethical corporate takeover engineered by a dead man. Your emotional attachment to frozen dairy is irrelevant. Focus. "Ralph will be there in minutes," she snapped. The drive was pure adrenaline and existential dread. I was speeding through red lights with my 65-year-old neighbor secret agent demanding I exceed the posted limit, all while clutching a pint of sea salt caramel. My brain was completely short-circuiting. Wait, I said, hitting the horn accidentally as a pigeon flew by. "If you are the architect and Caleb is the tech guy, where is the real Bobby Washington 74M? And why did Sterling make Angela pay the rent for your secret lair apartment 3B? Pamela sighed, folding a document precisely in half. Sterling and I realized the only way to fund the foundation and dismantle Finch Global without a decade of legal battles was through absolute misdirection. Angela was an asset, not a target. We needed someone high-level to pay the rent for 3B, ensuring it looked like standard corporate fraud, not a covert operations center. Sterling manipulated her into paying it by promising her the Saint-Tropez Research Consulting invoice would be approved if she handled the nuisance property below the content strategist's apartment. She thinks she was screwing over the company. She was actually funding Project Echelon. It's genius, frankly. So Bobby Washington, the actual guy, I pressed. Where is he? He's at a remote safe house in upstate New York working remotely on the nonprofit bylaws. He's the figurehead. The Grey Rock method is perfect because people forget he exists. He just needs to look busy and sign the paperwork we send him, Pamela explained, finally looking up. The moment the will was read, his job was done. We put the firm in trust, protected from the vultures. Now we execute the final phase. We pulled into the parking garage for Finch Global. It was 2:45 a.m. The place was deserted except for one leased BMW parked aggressively close to the entrance. Ralph's. Damn it, Pamela muttered, throwing open the car door before it fully stopped. He's fast. 5th floor, conference room B, go. We took the stairs because Pamela said the elevators were too easy to track. And GL sprinting up 5 flights of stairs with a pint of Teleni still mostly intact was probably the most physically demanding thing I've done since I tried to assemble an IKEA dresser by myself. We burst onto the 5th floor. The conference room door was slightly ajar. We heard frantic scrambling noises inside. Ralph, Pamela roared, a sound completely unlike the passive-aggressive whisperer who usually complained about my television volume. Ralph Shaw was standing on the conference table, his tailored suit completely rumpled, holding a chair over his head, trying to pry open a ceiling tile near the busted air conditioning unit. He looked like a panicked, over-caffeinated squirrel trying to access a nut stash. He dropped the chair when he saw us. His face was pure terror and betrayal. Pamela, what are you doing here? And you content strategist? Are you working for her? Ralph stammered. Lower the chair, Ralph. Y'all damaged the veneer, Pamela said, walking into the room with terrifying calmness. We know you read the audit, you're a liability. You absolute snake, Ralph shrieked, pointing the chair at Pamela. You were Sterling's the hydrangeas, you're the one who sabotaged the quarterly reports. I spent 2 years, 8 months building my personal brand for this firm, and you, the loud neighbor, are running an internal coup. Sterling called your personal brand a collection of meaningless buzzwords that smelled faintly of desperation, Pamela stated flatly. And yes, Ralph, I am running a coup. We are saving Finch Global from your disastrous, visionary, youthful leadership metrics. While they were arguing, I scanned the ceiling. The tile Ralph was trying to access was slightly discolored. I grabbed a broom handle resting near the whiteboard and clumsily popped the tile loose. A small metal box tumbled down onto the conference table, skidding across the highly polished surface. Ralph lunged for it, but Pamela intercepted him with a move that looked suspiciously like a professional football tackle, except she used her hip. Ralph went down hard. I honestly think I saw him cry a little, poor guy. I grabbed the box. It was heavy, maybe 8x10 inches, and sealed with a heavy combination lock. The code? I asked Pamela, who was now expertly pinning Ralph's arm behind his back. Is it loud neighbor? No, that was the encryption phrase for the instructions, Pamela gasped, straining slightly. Sterling changed the final box code. It's 9 digits. Think, what did Sterling truly despise more than anything else? His ex-wives, PowerPoint transitions, low engagement rates? Pamela shook her head fiercely. No. The one constant, unbearable logistical nightmare that defined his entire existence for 2 years. I suddenly remembered a terrible story Sterling told me about his previous assistant, who messed up his calendar so badly he missed the annual industry awards dinner. The date of the missed black tie gala? I ventured. No, idiot, Ralph choked out from under Pamela's grip, desperation sharpening his voice. It's 47,000. It's the number of LinkedIn connections he mocked me for having. He used to write it on sticky notes and leave them on my monitor. I tried it, 47000. The lock didn't budge. No, dummy, Pamela corrected, releasing Ralph just long enough to slap the top of his head before pinning him again. Sterling was 92, he wouldn't use a dash. It's 47000000, 9 digits. I typed in 47000000. Click. I opened the box. Inside there wasn't gold or deeds or stock certificates. There were 2 things. 1, a handwritten note on Finch Global letterhead signed by Sterling. 2, a stack of high-resolution, glossy 8x10 photos. I read the note aloud, my voice shaking. To Bobby Washington and Project Echelon, you have successfully secured the assets. Now for the final necessary phase of ethical redistribution. The $5 million reserved for Angela's mandated destination wedding must still be spent, as per the legal agreement. The contract is ironclad and non-negotiable. If the $5 million is not expended on a corporate-wide 9-day luxury event, the entire trust reverts to the Sterling Finch Family Foundation, which unfortunately is run by his most incompetent, greedy cousin. The wedding must take place, but not for Angela. It must be a fake destination wedding. A spectacular $5 million farce. The photos enclosed are the only clue to the intended bride and groom. I looked at the photos. They were wedding portraits, high quality, beautifully shot, extremely expensive-looking photos of 2 people looking blissfully happy. The bride was none other than Pamela Gonzalez, 65F. She looked about 30 years younger in the photo, gorgeous and radiant in a white gown. The groom was Sterling Finch, 92M. They were standing on a beach, smiling radiantly. Wait, you guys were married? I whispered, looking from the photo to the operative pinning Ralph. Pamela let go of Ralph, who immediately scrambled under the table. She looked at the photo, and for the first time her gray rock exterior cracked slightly. Yes, we were secretly married 20 years ago. Sterling loved chaos, but he also loved me. And he knew the family would destroy his legacy if they knew he married the loud neighbor in apartment 4A's building, she explained, her voice softening slightly. That's why he left the firm to a trust run by Bobby. He was setting up the ultimate ethical joke. Ralph poked his head out from under the table. So the will reading was a joke, and the destination wedding clause is a massive legal loophole for your marital funds? This is insane. It's genius, Ralph, Pamela countered. Sterling didn't want the money to go to his greedy family, but he couldn't leave it directly to me without contestation. So he mandates a $5 million destination wedding celebration, which is actually the payout of my prenup, but he deliberately left out who the wedding was for. Since the contract must be fulfilled, we throw a spectacular, mandatory corporate-wide event to satisfy the trust clause. The attendees must be present, and the money must be spent. We throw a fake wedding, fulfill the prenup payout, and secure the foundation assets. So the problem is, I summarized, still staring at the gorgeous wedding photo, we have to spend $5 million on a fake wedding, and we need a bride and groom to make it look real. Exactly, Pamela said, picking up the box. And since I was already the real bride and Sterling is deceased, the trust demands a plausible replacement couple be presented to the entire company in the Maldives. We have to make everyone believe this wedding is happening, or the entire project echelon the ethical redistribution of millions toward nonprofit work collapses. I am not marrying Ralph, I declared immediately. I am not marrying her, Ralph protested from under the table. Pamela looked at me. The key is plausibility. The couple needs to be utterly non-threatening, easily manipulated, and have zero public financial footprint. Someone who could plausibly be gifted a $5 million wedding by a whimsical CEO looking to reward loyalty. I slowly slid the pint of Talenti back into the cold insulation bag I kept in my Civic. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ice cream. We need a sacrifice, I realized, feeling that familiar corporate dread wash over me. 2 sacrifices, Pamela corrected, her eyes sparkling with ruthless pragmatism. And darling, you're already in 3B, you're complicit, and you know the plan, you're perfect. I am not getting married to save the nonprofit sector, I argued weakly. It's not real marriage, Pamela insisted. It's a $5 million performance review NGL. We need a bride and groom who the staff will find utterly believable as the unwitting, overwhelmed recipients of Sterling's last chaotic act of generosity. I looked down at the pictures again, Pamela and Sterling. Sterling's legacy was now dependent on me performing a destination wedding farce. Who's the groom? I asked, defeated. Pamela smiled. Sterling's final instruction was highly specific. Pair the content strategist with the only man in the company who understands security, chaos, and how to look constantly stressed. I knew exactly who that was. Caleb Gonzalez, I groaned. Precisely, Pamela confirmed. Now, Ralph, you will remain under this table until 8:00 a.m., at which point you will calmly go to your desk and post a highly enthusiastic LinkedIn update supporting the new management structure. Or I will leak the Delaware Shell Company invoice to the SEC. Ralph sniffled. I hate you, Pamela. I know, dear. Now content strategist, call Caleb. We have 48 hours to plan a destination wedding. So 2 days later, I was sitting on a folding chair in the empty apartment 3B, surrounded by hundreds of wedding planning documents that Pamela had conjured up seemingly out of thin air. Caleb Gonzalez, 49M, the protective sibling, was pacing furiously, wearing the same suspicious expression he usually reserves for monitoring DDoS attacks. I am not getting married, Caleb stated for the 15th time. He was texting rapidly on his protected Samsung. Not real, Caleb, it's a legal performance, I argued, trying to highlight the logistical importance of the fake nuptials. We need to burn $5 million on a massive corporate retreat disguised as a wedding. It fulfills Sterling's contract, keeps Angela quiet, and prevents the family foundation from taking over the company and dissolving it. I deal with firewalls, not floral arrangements, Caleb protested, running a hand through his perpetually neat hair. And what about Pamela? She should be the bride. She already was the bride, I explained, gesturing toward the beautiful photo of her and Sterling I now had tucked into my binder. We are the stand-ins, the unwitting corporate pawns. Sterling set this up so nobody would look at why the money was being spent, only who was spending it. Pamela walked in, holding a steaming mug of something that smelled suspiciously like very strong instant coffee. She was back in her muumuu, looking perfectly like the harmless, loud neighbor again. It was a terrifying transformation. We have confirmation, Pamela said, her voice dropping back into its normal, slightly whiny register, but the intelligence in her eyes was unmistakable. Angela Thompson has accepted the premise. She believes the $5 million is entirely for her will reading celebration, but with a romantic theme tacked on. She's demanding 10 specific types of artisanal olive oil for the catering and mandatory attendance for everyone who holds the title director or higher. She's demanding the artisanal olive oil be flown in separately, I confirmed, checking the memo. This is going to be hell. We need the illusion of chaos and spontaneity, Pamela stated. We leak the details slowly. Content strategist, you are now in charge of the social media rollout. It needs to look like you two are wildly in love and absolutely overwhelmed by the sudden windfall. I nearly choked on my sip of water. But Caleb and I barely speak unless I need my VPN reset. Exactly, plausible deniability. You are both low-key, constantly stressed, and exactly the type of people who would never manage to get married without a CEO bankrolling it, Pamela said clinically. You need to look slightly bewildered but grateful. Caleb finally stopped pacing. Fine. I will do it for Clara. Sterling's foundation will prioritize ethical tech development, right? We can finally expose the financial inconsistencies of several competitors. That is the goal, Pamela assured him. Now we have to address the key logistical complication, the actual ceremony. I sighed. What's the complication? We stand up there, say I do, and get the $5 million spent. The complication is Pamela Gonzalez, the loud neighbor, Caleb interjected dryly. She knows too much. No, the complication is Pamela Gonzalez, the architect, Pamela corrected, dropping the moo voice completely. The mandatory attendance clause specifies that the entire event must be witnessed and certified by one individual who is listed as custodian of the trust's emotional well-being. She slid a document across the table. The custodian listed was Angela Thompson, 85F. Wait, Angela has to sign off on the emotional well-being of the trust. I reread the insane line. Why? Sterling was a genius, remember. He knew she was the most demanding, chaotic person alive. If she signs off, it means the entire debacle was so successful it even satisfied her ridiculous standards, Pamela explained. It's the final gray rock tactic, use the most difficult person as the certification stamp. So if we fail to satisfy Angela's demands for luxury, chaos, and drama, the trust fund collapses, Caleb concluded, looking horrified. We have to give the destination wedding demander her destination wedding celebration, even if it's fake. Yes, Pamela confirmed, which means we need full commitment to the performance. Content strategist, you need to write the most convincing, saccharine, terrifyingly professional LinkedIn post about your sudden, overwhelming engagement. Make it about synergy in personal partnership. I had never wanted to write about synergy less in my life, but I was suddenly staring down the barrel of a $5 million financial farce. TBH, the adrenaline was starting to feel less like terror and more like determination. This was the ultimate content strategy project. Fast forward to Friday, the entire corporate network was buzzing. My post went viral within hours. My LinkedIn post, Friday 10:00 a.m. I am overwhelmed and profoundly moved to announce my engagement to the exceptional Caleb Gonzalez. Sometimes true synergistic partnerships develop where you least expect them. Thanks to the generosity of the late Sterling Finch, we will be uniting our professional and personal visions in a required, mandatory attendance 9-day corporate retreat destination wedding in the Maldives. We are so grateful to the new leadership at Finch Global for supporting the seamless transition of human capital into deep, meaningful, permanent commitment. RSVP link sent separately. Synergy #Finch Global Legacy Lovin' the Workplace Ethical Redistribution. I literally hated myself for every hashtag. It got 800 likes, 40 comments, and several very pointed messages from Ralph Shaw asking if I was mentally compromised. Caleb's profile update was much simpler. Status, committed, will update firewalls from the beach. My life was now a high-stakes performance art piece. I was spending all my time either reviewing spreadsheets with Pamela on how to expense $50,000 worth of mood lighting in the Maldives or awkwardly pretending to be in love with Caleb. A week went by where I essentially lived in 3B, ignoring my actual apartment 4B above. My actual job of writing content strategy for the firm was now fully focused on creating wedding landing pages and complex passive-aggressive seating charts. By Tuesday, I was completely fried. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night. I had to meet Caleb at the local coffee shop, the one where Pamela had confronted Ralph months ago, to practice our engagement banter. You need to look at me, content strategist, Caleb instructed, adjusting the fake silver band Pamela had forced him to wear. You keep looking at your cold Americano like it's your true love. It has not betrayed me, Caleb, unlike everyone else in my life, I mumbled, trying to channel the bewildered but grateful energy. Look, we need to address the practicalities. We need to look like we're planning the wedding, but also managing the company transition. I am currently tracking 3 different shell accounts Ralph opened since the will reading, Caleb informed me. He is trying to raise private capital to launch a competitor firm, and he's using Finch Global's IP. We need the wedding to happen fast or Echelon gets compromised. Right, burn the cash, save the foundation, I said. Okay, let's talk first dance song. Pamela wants something dramatically appropriate but slightly unsettling. Caleb stared at me. How about the Law and Order theme song? That's unsettling. Number, Pamela said, Bohemian Rhapsody edited down to 2 minutes and involving a fog machine. She's already expensing the fog machine. Our banter was terrible, but it was working. We were starting to fall into a strange conspiratorial rhythm. We were bonded by the shared trauma of mandatory fake wedding planning. Then the true complication arrived. Update, this morning he showed up at my door. I was finally back in 4B trying to do my laundry and eat a healthy sad pre-made salad for lunch. There was a loud, insistent knocking. I opened the door to see Ralph Shaw, 34M, dressed impeccably, holding a small, sad bouquet of grocery store flowers. I need to talk to you, Ralph said, his voice surprisingly calm, which was instantly terrifying. I know you and Caleb aren't really engaged, and I know about Pamela and Sterling. The audit files were very clear, NGL. I used my best gray rock method, channeling Bobby Washington. That is certainly a choice, Ralph. I will review the data. Don't give me that passive-aggressive crap, content strategist. Ralph stepped closer. You guys are trying to steal the company and funnel the assets into some ridiculous nonprofit structure, all because Sterling was bitter. I wanted to modernize the firm. The firm was modernized, Ralph. It was just running a secret, ethical financial operation, I retorted, letting my content strategist guard down completely. He dropped the flowers onto my welcome mat. Listen, I know I've been intense, I know I've been an upstart, but I genuinely believe in this firm. I am offering you a partnership. My mind immediately went to the $50,000 invoice for securing executive transition. This guy was pure snake. A partnership? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes. You and Caleb are the perfect cover, the innocent pawns, but you are about to be used by Pamela, who is clearly just executing Sterling's revenge. If you help me expose Pamela's secret marriage and reveal that the $5 million is a prenup payout, not a corporate celebration, the trust fails, but the assets revert to the family. And guess who the family will immediately hire to run the company, needing a visionary young leader? You, I stated flatly. Exactly. And I will ensure you get a senior VP title, stock options, and full coverage on that damn Honda Civic repair bill, Ralph pleaded, desperation leaking into his tone. We can save the company from the nonprofits. We can be rich. Think of the metrics. I stared at him. He was offering me everything I thought I wanted 3 weeks ago, stability, money, and a title that meant something. But I had seen the secret messages, the expense fraud, the sheer narcissistic entitlement. Ralph, I said, leaning closer, I saw the evidence. You opened 3 shell accounts this week. You're bleeding the company dry while wearing tailored suits you can't afford. You see Finch Global as a launchpad, not an actual place where people work. His face went pale. Caleb told you. Caleb warned me you were a snake, I confirmed. And Sterling left the final asset instructions in a ceiling tile. The true legacy of Finch Global is a giant $5 million joke to spite people like you and Angela. I am not going to let a former loud neighbor and an IT guy ruin my career, Ralph threatened, stepping back. I will expose the fraud. The wedding won't happen. It has to happen, I said, grabbing the sad bouquet and tossing it back toward him. We have 48 hours until we board the private jet to the Maldives. And if you try to stop it, Pamela will ruin your personal brand so thoroughly you won't be able to post another inspirational quote for 20 years. Now get out of my apartment complex, Ralph. I slammed the door, my heart pounding. I immediately texted Caleb, Ralph KNOWS. He showed up at 4BHES trying to sabotage the wedding. Caleb texted back immediately, I am already tracking his GPS. He is heading to ANGLAS. They are colluding. Phase 3 ACCLERATD. The wedding is now tomorrow. So that's how I ended up on a private Gulfstream jet the very next afternoon, wearing a white sundress that Pamela had purchased on a highly questionable corporate card, sitting next to Caleb Gonzalez, who looked like he was about to vomit from motion sickness. Angela Thompson, 85F, the destination wedding demander, was across the aisle wearing the massive feathered hat again, sipping champagne and complaining loudly about the altitude. Content strategist, darling, Angela trilled, her voice too loud for the confined space. Are you absolutely certain you and Caleb understand the gravity of this celebration, the bespoke French lace, the artisanal olive oil tasting station? This is not merely a wedding, it is the culmination of Sterling's vision for luxury. We understand the synergistic implications, Angela, I said, channeling my inner Bobby Washington. We are grateful for the opportunity to model committed human capital. Pamela, sitting 2 seats ahead, was typing furiously on a shielded laptop. She was in full agent mode, monitoring the markets. She looked back at me and mouthed, watch Angela. Ralph is coming. Ralph Shaw hadn't given up. He had successfully convinced Angela that he was her ally in securing the legacy, and that Pamela/Bobby were trying to steal her celebration money. Ralph's plan was clear. Get to the Maldives, expose the secret marriage and the true purpose of the $5 million expenditure, thereby forcing the trust to revert. If the trust reverted, the $5 million wedding contract would be deemed null and the foundation would be broke. The company would go to Sterling's terrible family. We landed in the Maldives. The resort was insane. It was pure, unadulterated $5 million opulence. Every senior executive, every department director, including the tiny lawyer from the Will Reading, was there, mandated to attend the 9-day corporate retreat fake wedding. The wedding itself was scheduled for the very next evening on a ridiculously expensive overwater deck. The day before the wedding, Ralph made his move. He cornered me near the infinity pool where I was awkwardly trying to practice my in-love gaze with Caleb, who was currently debugging a system vulnerability on his Samsung. This is your last chance, Ralph whispered, his face tight with desperation. I have proof. I screenshotted the Delaware Shell Company invoice and the Thompson-Finch agreement. I'm going to present it to Angela before the ceremony. She will stop the entire thing. We're going to expose corporate fraud and a secret marriage in the middle of a $5 million event you were forced to attend, I summarized. That's going to look great on your LinkedIn, Ralph. I don't care anymore. I deserve that CEO chair. I looked past him. Pamela was watching us from the bar, sipping a bright blue cocktail, looking absolutely furious that Ralph was still talking about metrics. You know what, Ralph? I said, standing up tall. This was my content strategist moment. You focus so much on the deliverables that you missed the strategy. Pamela knew you would try to sabotage this. She accounted for it. No one could account for this level of treachery. She did because she married Sterling Finch, the king of chaos, 20 years ago, I said, lowering my voice. Project Echelon isn't just about the assets. It's about using the greed and predictability of people like you and Angela against yourselves. Ralph looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? The mandatory corporate attendance, I explained, and the emotional well-being clause. It's not about the money, Ralph, it's about the performance. I walked away, leaving him standing by the pool looking utterly bewildered. I walked straight to Pamela. He's going to tell Angela everything, I reported. Good, Pamela said, taking a sip of the blue cocktail. That's exactly what needs to happen. The wedding ceremony was set. The sun was setting over the Indian Ocean. I was wearing the beautiful but ridiculously over-budget dress. Caleb was next to me, looking sweaty and like he wanted to be anywhere else, probably solving complex quadratic equations. The tiny, exhausted lawyer was there, reading the corporate-mandated vows. The entire senior leadership team was present, looking confused, sunburnt, and aggressively professional in their resort wear. Angela Thompson was sitting in the front row, wearing an impossibly large sun hat and holding a silver fountain pen, ready to sign the emotional well-being certification. Just as the lawyer got to the part about synergy and the optimization of human capital, Ralph burst onto the deck, waving a stack of papers. Stop! This entire wedding is a fraud, Ralph shouted, his voice echoing across the water. Chaos erupted. People started snapping photos. The tiny lawyer looked like he was about to pass out. Ralph ran straight to Angela, thrusting the documents into her hands. Angela, look at this. Pamela and Sterling were secretly married. This is a prenup payout, not a celebration. The will reading was a joke, and these two, the content strategist and the IT guy, are just pawns. Angela slowly took the papers. She looked at the invoices, the expense reports, and the secret marriage certificate. The entire audience held its breath. She looked at Ralph. She looked at me and Caleb. She looked at Pamela, standing silently near the side. A slow, terrifying smile spread across Angela Thompson's face. A secret marriage, a $50,000 shell company, a conspiracy to dismantle a major corporation for ethical nonprofit redistribution. Oh, Ralph, darling, this is absolutely wonderful. Angela shrieked with delight. Ralph froze. Wonderful, but the fraud, the trust is invalid. Invalid, are you insane? This is the most delicious, expensive corporate treachery I have ever witnessed, Angela declared, clutching the papers to her chest. Sterling planned a multi-million-dollar hostile takeover of his own legacy, using his loud neighbor as a secret operative. The drama, the audacity, the sheer cost of it all. Angela stood up, tossing Ralph's evidence into the air like confetti. I demand a recount of the plot twists. This is the greatest celebration of a will reading I could have ever imagined. The content strategist and the IT guy pawns pretending to be in love, forced to attend. It's perfectly chaotic. It absolutely satisfies the emotional well-being clause of the trust. This is what Sterling would have wanted. She grabbed the silver fountain pen and scrawled her signature onto the certification form Pamela had provided, slapping it dramatically onto the table. Certified, the emotional well-being of the trust is satisfied, Angela announced triumphantly. Now where is my artisanal olive oil tasting? And content strategist, kiss the groom, you have a company to save. And just like that, the $5 million destination wedding farce was certified. Angela, the destination wedding demander, was perfectly satisfied by the sheer spectacle of the betrayal and fraud. Sterling had used her chaotic desire for drama as the final loophole. I looked at Caleb. He sighed, put his Samsung away, and leaned in. We shared a totally unnecessary, extremely awkward kiss in front of 80 confused corporate executives. It tasted faintly of stress and the sea salt caramel Talenti I had finally finished earlier that morning. So here's the update. 2 months have passed since the fake wedding and the certified chaos. I'm back in my apartment 4B, but things are profoundly different. Apartment 3B is now officially the Finch Global Foundation Operations Center, and Pamela is now the executive director of the foundation, operating entirely in her black slacks. Mumu retired forever. She still complains about my recycling, but now it's in a tone of professional corporate governance. Finch Global has officially transitioned. It is now a non-profit consulting firm focusing on ethical capital redistribution. Bobby Washington, 74M, is still the figurehead CEO, sending out weekly non-committal updates. He is, however, now sending them from the Bahamas, where he is apparently enjoying the low-stress environment. Caleb Gonzalez and I are not together, NGL. We immediately filed the annulment paperwork the moment we got back. However, we are now forced to interact constantly. He manages all the foundation's IT security, and I am the chief communications officer. We run the operation together, occasionally making eye contact across the conference table, both silently acknowledging that we were married for 72 hours in the Maldives to save a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. It's a weird bond. Ralph Shaw, poor pathetic Ralph. Pamela leveraged the Delaware Shell Company documents and gave him a choice. Resign and agree to a lifetime NDA or face an SEC audit. He resigned immediately and posted a final, profoundly sad LinkedIn post about taking a step back to pursue entrepreneurial endeavors. He has 12 likes on that post. The irony is not lost on me. I saw him at Trader Joe's last week. I literally hid behind a stack of organic oat milk. Angela Thompson is thrilled. She got her $5 million spent on the biggest party of her life, and she genuinely believes she successfully foiled Ralph's efforts to stop the beautiful celebration. She calls Pamela every week, demanding updates on the foundation's mandatory social calendars. Pamela uses her gray rock skills to manage Angela down to one highly specific complaint per month. My role has changed entirely. I no longer write about synergy. I write about genuine ethical partnerships. I got a raise, a real title, and I finally paid off that terrible Honda Civic. I did something I never would have done before. I walked into my old manager's office, the one who kept promising me a promotion based on Q4 metrics, and handed in my resignation from the content strategist role, effective immediately. I'm now working 100% for the foundation. I took control of my career instead of waiting for a ridiculous corporate ladder to lift me up. I'm still dealing with the stress, TBH. I still wake up at 2:00 a.m. sometimes, convinced Ralph is going to show up at my door with another subpoena. I still stress it Talenti, but I'm also laughing more. Yesterday, Caleb and I had to coordinate an emergency wire transfer and he accidentally called me honey. We both dissolved into laughter for a solid minute. It's messy. I am managing a massive foundation with a fake ex-husband and a secretly genius neighbor who was married to the deceased CEO. Nothing is tied up perfectly. The lawyers are still arguing about the legality of the mandatory destination wedding, but because Angela signed off on the emotional well-being clause, the trust fund is secure. Sterling truly was a genius of chaos. I learned that the most important lessons and the most dangerous conspiracies happen not in boardrooms but in lockdown LinkedIn threads and tiny vacant apartment units. And sometimes the loudest neighbor is the one you need to watch the closest. Anyway, that's the update. I'm busy planning the next foundation gala, which Pamela insists must be themed sustainable growth through intentional disruption. I'll update if anything else insane happens. Keep your DMs locked down, everyone. You never know who's listening.